Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to carry on this discussion with the same focus on transatlantic relations, developments in the Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean. So we're going to hear from several speakers. Dubravka Šuica, Commissioner for the Mediterranean at the European Commission, will hear a video message. So let me invite now to join me on the stage our speakers in the room. Volkan Bozkır, former President, United Nations General Assembly. Welcome, sir. Amre Moussa, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt. Please take a seat. And former Secretary General of the League of Arab States. Welcome, Amre Moussa. John Sitalidis, geopolitical strategist, senior fellow for global risks at the Center for the National Interest and former US Department of State diplomacy consultant 2006 to 2023. And for the business perspective, Yakavos Petropoulias, principal advisor for the MENA region Vigilis Group. Okay, so thank you, gentlemen. So I think everybody's aware that we're running quite late now, I think about 25 minutes. We're going to try and catch up with time because I know you're all going to be so disciplined. Before we start, we want to hear the video message now. Technical team, if you can show the video with a message from the Commissioner for the Mediterranean, Dubravka Šuica.
Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot be there with you, but I couldn't miss the chance to send the message to this important roundtable. We are going through an age of upheaval. This was crystal clear from the war in Gaza to the Hormuz crisis. Even with the deal now on the table, I think we all see how fragile the situation is, and we cannot entirely see the extent of the consequences for the day after, for the Middle East and for the global economy. The core of the European Union's foreign policy is simple. We must address upheaval by creating stability, peace, and prosperity. And the only way to do it is building robust partnerships, building a corridor of trust and prosperity in the spirit of mutual respect and joint responsibility. That is the purpose of our Pact for the Mediterranean, to create a common Mediterranean space where we work together with our partners to address shared challenges. Let me give you some examples. We want our people to connect to each other, so we are creating the Mediterranean University, an initiative connecting universities across the region, boosting learning mobility, and supporting people-to-people contacts. We want each community around the Mediterranean and in the Middle East to have the means to address the challenges they face, the challenges we share. Growing new businesses and adding real value to all our economies. So we have launched initiatives like TMED, investing in renewable energy, powering up the region and creating new opportunities on all shores of the Mediterranean and beyond. So we are investing in projects like the Medusa cable system, building the connectivity to the region. We want people to live safely and peacefully, protected from hybrid threats or terrorism, not at the mercy of organized crime, being smuggled or trafficked into Europe. We are coordinating with our partners, sharing knowledge and technical assistance, so that our fight against hostile actors and organized crime is more effective. Our regional and cross-regional work goes hand in hand with our bilateral partnerships. For example, our strategic and comprehensive partnerships with Tunisia, Egypt, or Jordan, and our future strategic partnership agreements with the Gulf. We are also building our resilience, strengthening free trade and connectivity through projects like IMEC. The Gulf plays a special role here, being a crucial link to the Indian Ocean and Asia, and representing a big market in their own right. Europe stood in solidarity as our Gulf partners were attacked, and our reliability, our standing by international law, and solidarity to partners was essential and appreciated. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we are going through an age of upheaval, but as always, progress can be found in our work to build stability and prosperity. Europe has been a trusted partner in all major Middle East crises. Europe has been an honest broker, a major humanitarian and development actor from Palestine to Syria to Lebanon and most recently the Gulf. And Europe intends to play a key role in shaping a stable, peaceful and prosperous Middle East and Gulf. I wish you a very fruitful roundtable. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're now going to hear from each of you your perspectives on transatlantic relations and on recent developments in the region, in the Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean. At a time when we have this ceasefire, which seems to be exceedingly fragile, as we've seen over the past 24 hours or so. So turning to you, first of all, Mr. Bozkır.
Thank you very much. I've been 55 years in politics diplomacy, and I have, my latest job was the former president of the United Nations General Assembly, but before that I was EU minister, chief negotiator. But I have been impartial when I was president of the United Nations General Assembly. So as I promised to you, I will keep my impartiality and will not reply to the hostile reference to the US congressmen just who spoke before me. I think I learned two things. One is the looking at the forest and not to the trees. And second is to remember history. Why I'm referring this, because, for example, if Germany in the Second World War remembered what Napoleon suffered while trying to invade Russia, it was the end of Napoleon. And Germany did the same mistake, and it was the end of Hitler's time. So I was first secretary in Baghdad when Iraqi-Iranian war started. People were thinking that in 3 days, Iraqi armies will reach Tehran. It took 8 years, 1 million people died, and the same result came out. So when you think, when you plan something, you must remember history that Iran had a capacity to use missiles, and that was a missile war, throwing missiles from Tehran to Baghdad, Baghdad to Tehran. And I think when this decision by the United States was made to attack Iran, I think this calculation was not done. So still, we are in the mid of something which we think it will end, but every day you think of peace, and then suddenly you wake up in the morning and learn that another attack comes out. So it might continue with us the same way. I think the Russian invasion of Ukraine was another important event, which I think kept us very much busy. In the beginning, many people thought it will be for months, but it took now, it's more than 4 years now. So this is going to be with us. The result of it, I think the post-Second World War institutions, the picture we have has been successful for, let's say, about 70, 75, 80 years. But now it's under threat. And we don't know what to do and what is going to be with us in the future. For EU, it wasn't a success. For NATO, it wasn't a success. I think that is the problem the world is facing. What are we going to do now? And we don't have a luxury to get rid of the United Nations, to get rid of NATO. We don't know what to do with the European Union to be a part in the decision-making or result-oriented matters in the international field. So that is with us now, the unpredictability, and which is also risking stability. When the Arab Spring came out, we were very much happy that dictators are out. Now we will have democracy, human rights, and we will live in a very nice world. But after a while, we saw that Libya is gone, Iraq is gone, Syria is gone, and some people in the world started thinking that stability and predictability is more important than democracy and human rights. Because people say, if they were still with us, we wouldn't have lost Libya, or we wouldn't have seen what's happening in Syria or Iraq. So this concept change is not good. We have a risk on democracy and human rights as well. And I'm sure the existing rules and the way we have lived in the modern world will overcome all these difficulties we are facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If I may just ask a quick follow-up, just to ask you to comment on how you see transatlantic relations, and do you think there is a irreparable breakdown there, or just a reconfiguration? How do you see it?
I divide things realistic look and romantic look. Realistic look is that there is a new dimension the United States administration has brought. And we must really understand what it is. Because Europe and the Western world lived comfortably, leaving the security risks to the United States for 80 years. And the United States now says that you must also share the burden. You must take care of yourselves. I'm not in a position to be your big brother and help you in many respects. So I think this can be solved because the Western world has the power to do that. Not as good as the United States did for 80 years, but I think the European countries have a power, but they must have the conceptual changes and put into effect their own capacities. And that will bring a new picture where I think the balance between United States and Europe shouldn't be divided by an ocean, as President Trump said. I don't think oceans are to separate, but to connect.
Thank you very much. Turning now to Amre Moussa for your introductory remarks.
Thank you very much.
Maybe, Mr. Moussa, if you take this off, just in case it interferes with your microphone.
Just to be able to listen to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. First of all, I wish to thank the Economist Enterprise for inviting me to participate in this very important session and to listen to so many positive, strong statements and also some negative statements. And in this, I want to join my friend, my neighbor, the president, former president of the General Assembly of the United Nations. I join his remarks concerning what we have heard about the alliances that we haven't heard before, that it is an alliance. It could be partnership. It could be any other thing, but alliance in this burning situation in the Middle East, in Eastern Mediterranean, this is something new and needs to be dealt with in a very direct way. Eastern Mediterranean, otherwise called West Asia, has a responsibility. Eastern Mediterranean is not only the three countries or the three parties mentioned, that is Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. Eastern Mediterranean is much larger than that. And describing the situation in Eastern Mediterranean based on access against others is very destructive position or proposition. And I am really sorry to get into this. The Middle East is burning. And without properly addressing the Palestinian question, there will be no peace and no stability in the region. If we take into consideration what happened vis-à-vis Iran, then the Hormuz question, the effects on the international trade, the destruction of countries, and the reaction to this, the Middle East, in its larger form, is going in the wrong direction. We want to have peace. And we want the Eastern Mediterranean countries to work to establish peace, to cooperate with the drive to establish peace in West Asia. We need Greece with us. We need Cyprus with us. We need even the peace movement in Israel with us. We need this core group of countries and people and organizations working together to establish peace. Not to differentiate, not to talk about projects against others. This is the wrong approach. We need the United States to preside over a drive towards a fair peace. And in all honesty, and very clearly, without properly addressing the Palestinian question, there will be no peace, no stability, and no future for the cooperation in Eastern Mediterranean. That's one thing.
You've got 25 seconds.
Second, I must refer to certain developments in the region as a result of what happened recently with Iran and what happened always vis-à-vis the Palestinians. A group of countries has been now established, that is Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Pakistan, and Egypt. 4 countries that are trying to contribute positively to the operation of reshaping the Middle East. We need a peaceful Middle East. We need all those peoples and countries of the Middle East to live in peace, including Israel, but not exclusively Israel. Israel, Palestine, and the rest of us. The agenda that I appeal to all the Eastern Mediterraneans to cooperate in order to establish peace. There is an agenda that we have to address. Number 1 is the Palestinian question. And they have the right to exercise their right to self-determination. It's a very simple thing. Of course, difficult perhaps to Israel and perhaps to others, but there is no solution that does not go through this exercise of self-determination to the Palestinians, and at the same time, that would facilitate the entry of Israel into the Middle Eastern Society of Nations.
Thank
The other one, the
Thank
other
you.
point,
Just
sorry.
very briefly, because we're running short
that?
of time. We're running over time quite a bit, so
I see
you're
the-
1.5 minutes over.
all right.
So we
I
will
still
come
have
back.
time. I still have time.
We will come back to you. Yeah,
still
this
have time.
clock is very useful, actually,
Madam,
for the...
Let me finish in a minute. The second problem we have is the nuclear situation in the region. I and so many of our colleagues, our friends, and the people and organizations agree that Iran must not go nuclear. There is no question about that. We do agree. But what about Israel, the nuclear Israel? If we want to properly address the issue of nuclear proliferation in the Middle East, we have to address both the emerging nuclear power in Iran and the well-known military nuclear power in Israel. So this is the second one.
Thank-
The third one is
How many are
about
there?
the future of cooperation in the region. We have to work together to establish a different to the new Middle East. And the new Middle East cannot be based on the conditions that we have heard or the situation as it exists today in the region. Eastern Mediterranean countries have a responsibility here. We have all to work together to tell and advise, even advise the Israelis, that this is not a way to exist or coexist or stay in the Middle East as a power and a state. If they want to live, they have to cooperate. They have to change this attitude. We recognized Israel. We have no problem with the existence of Israel, but we have problem with the aggressive policy pursued by Israel. This is something that has to be told. There is something wrong in their policies. They don't want to coexist. We want them to coexist, and we want us to welcome them. Nobody is welcoming them now. It
Okay.
cannot go that way.
Okay,
Thank you.
I thank you very much. I think you've made your points very clearly, and we will come back, and obviously the panelists will be able to respond to them too. But let me turn now to John Sitilides, again for a perspective from the US.
Great. Thank you, Joan. And first of all, thank you to the Economist team for welcoming me back, and a special thank you to Nectaria and her superb team. What I thought I would do with the very limited time that we have here on stage is to try to provide strategic context for what is happening in Washington and how that plays out with the larger regions that we're discussing here in the European Union and in the Middle East. And Anne Applebaum earlier today referenced the National Security Strategy, which was released by the White House in late November. Then the State Department released its agency strategic plan right around New Year's. Shortly afterwards, I think the end of January, the Defense Department released the National Defense Strategy. These are all the unclassified versions are available online. So those of you who want to get a better, realistic understanding of the Trump administration's thinking, it's all available online. But I would also recommend, especially for those of you in the business community, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, issued a very prominent speech the end of June at the Economic Club of New York. And I consider Scott Bessent to be maybe the Trump whisperer above all of the other secretaries, more than Secretary Rubio, more than Secretary Hegseth. Follow what Scott Bessent is saying and doing. And what the Treasury Secretary spoke about was the importance of economic power as national power. And whether it's a country or whether it's a bloc of countries, if there is not economic power, there is no genuine national power or institutional power, hard or soft, to be able to project anywhere in the world. And I think that's part of the thinking right now with the Trump administration. The administration is looking to rebuild American economic power. It was hollowed out for the last 30 years. We made very foolish mistakes in America, Democrats and Republicans alike, outsourcing our industry to China and to other countries in Southeast Asia. We thought that we could become a powerhouse simply with services, health, education, and the like, and we forgot about industry and manufacturing. And now, as several of the speakers, including from the Greek government, mentioned earlier today, how important it is to be not just energy resilient, energy secure, and maybe we'll go into this in the Q&A, Joan, because I still haven't heard anyone today talk about nuclear power in Europe. You're talking about solar and wind power, which is great for Greece, but an utter failure for Germany, the United Kingdom, and other countries in Northern Europe. You need gas, you need oil, you need nuclear. And then you also add solar and renewable like wind. But I haven't heard any of this. And so energy resilience, energy security, energy redundancy to have manufacturing and industrial power, whether you're Greece or any other country in the Eastern Mediterranean. Technological power, obviously military power. And all of this really is undergoing a transformation under the current administration, not because Donald Trump is president, he's simply the accelerant for this, but in 2007, Vladimir Putin said, if you bring Ukraine into NATO, you're crossing a red line that you will regret. And in 2012, Xi Jinping became the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. We really haven't talked a lot about the China threat to the international order all day today. That really is the #1 long-term threat to Europe's viability. And also in the Middle East, it's part of the thinking where the administration is looking to build alliances with like-minded countries, whether they're democracies in the European Union, whether they're authoritarian regimes or sheikdoms in the Middle East. We're not promoting democracy in the Middle East anymore because that failed in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's not happening, at least for the next several years. What we want is resilient, powerful countries that can defend themselves to the best of their ability and then have the United States come in and provide that additional security umbrella. The nuclear umbrella for Europe against Russia, to work with our Gulf Arab allies and Israel together to promote a denuclearized or, frankly, non-nuclear Iran, because the great fear, sir, in Washington is if Iran goes nuclear, Saudi Arabia has said very clearly they'll attain nuclear weapons. And then Egypt, as the largest, most populous Muslim country in the Middle East, will likely want to secure its own independent nuclear arsenal. Turkey, even though it's a NATO country operating under the US nuclear umbrella, may then, as the most powerful military in the Muslim world, say, we should have a nuclear weapons arsenal. And then what are we dealing with cascading nuclear proliferation in the most war-torn region of the world? So these are some of the things that we're looking to sort of adapt to. And I think the larger concern here is, how do we come to grips with the fact that the world has been changing before our eyes for 20 years, whether it's the Russian threat against Europe, the Chinese threat against the global economy, and a future that is either going to be freedom-based and liberty-based or a techno-authoritarian surveillance system a la what the Chinese Communist Party has imposed on 1.3 billion people in China. And this is an area where we need to work together, the United States and Europe, on a future that's based on human rights and individual dignity and human flourishing. I heard a lot about democracy earlier today, and I'll wrap up here, Joan. Democracy, in my estimation, is not the end to itself. Democracy is the means by which governments provide for human flourishing for their citizens. And if we only talk about democracy, but we don't talk about the well-being of the citizens of every nation state, then democracy is a failure. So I close with the great Winston Churchill's quote that democracy is the worst form of government in the world, except every other one that has ever been tried. And then we'll come back to the Q&A. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. So now we're turning to the business perspective. And how do you see the challenges and the opportunities for business in this region in the light of the kind of geopolitical turbulence that is we've experienced in recent years in terms of trade, obviously in terms of conflicts in the region? What is your perspective and advice for businesses operating in the region?
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for hosting me today. Traditionally, when we have been thinking or working on Eastern Mediterranean, the prevailing question was always the same. When is the region going to become stable? Correct? Business owners, investors, infrastructure developments always ask this question. When is the region going to become stable? Now, what we have seen the last few years is that the question has changed. Now the question is, how can we operate, my voice is here, throughout the instability? And that's quite important as a shift to mirror society. We have heard the perspective of governments, alliances, and diplomacy, but I will try to give you an insight on how those who invest, transport, operate, and in general do business in the Eastern Mediterranean region act, irrespective of diplomatic timelines or government policies. At Vigilis, our company, we try to advise our clients not on how we would like the world to be. We try to advise our clients on how to operate and react in the world as it is. Right. And it's quite challenging to navigate all this situation. Mr. Marinakis a while ago said there are conflicts occurring in the world right now that nobody really knows about, well, almost nobody. But the issue with the Eastern Mediterranean is that every conflict, every war, every problem or opportunity or solution spreads around the world. Mm-hmm. We have shipping lanes crossing the Eastern Mediterranean, we have power resources emerging, we have digital infrastructure, undersea cables, and people. We should never forget the movement of people throughout the Eastern Med. All these have a ripple effect throughout the world. Now, the question has been changed, and the capital no longer worries about, well, it worries about uncertainty, but does not wait for certainty in order to invest. We try to incorporate uncertainty and the difficulties conflicts bring into the actual business model. And we see that on the designs of infrastructure. We see that the tendency now is not to work only towards what's economically viable or brings in money. We try to develop and invest in projects that are resilient as well as profitable. Because we don't know what's going to happen. We know that the area is in conflict. We know that things are happening. But let's face it, the last, may I say, thousands of years, there's always some kind of conflict in the region. And we have to work through that. And business and economy and prosperity works through that. People still do business. People wake up, they do their work, they raise their families in a conflict-ridden region. And we think, actually, we know, we don't think, that by advancing investment, by advancing infrastructure, by giving opportunities to the people, we underpin the diplomatic and political endeavors in order to bring stability to the region. We think that the old narrative of we need a safe place in order to invest does not apply anymore. Our clients, invest on areas that traditionally would look less favorable, and that advancement, we hope and we believe, will bring stability and prosperity itself. I don't want to undermine, by all means, the work of diplomacy and governments. Of course, this is the stuff that builds the world, but it's our position that if these two go in tandem, if these political endeavors, diplomatic progress, as well as investment, go in parallel, it will strategically magnify the end result, which is, as you said, the prosperity of the people.
Right.
So that's our position, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we've got about 5. I'm seeing 5. It's going down. 5 minutes for our discussion. Unfortunately, I think many issues have been raised. Maybe we can give everybody an opportunity to make some final remarks. And I think we should focus on 2 questions. One is this war over, or is this conflict over in the Middle East? Do you fear that this ceasefire could break down, that this memorandum of understanding could unravel? If not now, in future, maybe after the midterms, could it reignite? That is one question. Or are you hopeful that this can prevail, that peace can prevail in the region? And the second thing to focus on, because it was the emphasis, your emphasis, the emphasis of Amr Moussa, is on the prospects for widening alliances, for greater cooperation in the region. I have to say that there are some positive things that are happening, that have happened in recent years. And I'm thinking about the high-level dialogue that is taking place between Greece and Turkey over the past few years. That is ongoing. It's still continuing at a high level. It's actually delivered some very positive results for both countries. We have here representatives from the Eastern Med, Guest Forum, a body that has actually been building alliances and partnerships in the energy sphere in this region over many years now, and a forum that's open to others based on a set of principles which all need to agree on. So things are happening. We also see developments in terms of the Black Sea, Cooperation Council and so on. So there is some positive, it's not all bleak, but just to hear from you, very concretely, what would be a positive suggestion, not to talk in generalities, but one very concrete suggestion about how to improve, widen the axis of cooperation in the region. So maybe you've got about less than 1 minute each but to answer that. So very quickly.
First, I think everybody hopes that things will be settled in Iran, but it may not be because we're living in an unpredictable world. Anything might happen which we are not expecting. Secondly, between Turkey and Greece, I think the people doesn't want any difficulty among the two countries. The politicians are the reason that we are having some hot days, but I don't think any Greek or Turkish people wants this to continue. So this is an advantage. The new paradigm has also brought something new, which in the next military warfare, perhaps we will not need tanks anymore. We will not need aircraft carriers anymore. The new thing is less costly missiles, unmanned air or ground elements, and because we have learned that with $25,000 cost missiles, you don't want to shoot them with $3 million Patriots or other. So this is a new world. So we must prepare ourselves with the lessons we have learned from the things happening in Iran or elsewhere. But as Amr Moussa, my brother, have said, Middle East is one of the hot spots. And if we do not look at it properly, it may explode. And if we cannot solve this issue of living together in a two-state solution with Israel and Palestine, this will be with us for decades. And I think we deserve this to the Palestinian people. They have been brutally killed, and we don't want new terrorists to join us, which have lost their families, their brothers, their children. And we have to give them a hope and give them a proper way of living and a state which can be living together.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moussa. May we hear from you? What would be your concrete proposal for?
My proposal, in fact, would be addressed to the countries of Eastern Mediterranean. Greece and Cyprus were mentioned in a different proposition. I believe that we call on them, and they are ready and capable of working together with us in order to achieve peace, not to be a coalition against peace. And I am sure that Greece can, Cyprus can. The position has to be correctly put before all of us. Our goal is peace. And in fact, my proposal is that we need a Jewish member of our coalition for peace. And I am encouraged by what happened in the United States at the time of the Israeli aggression against Gaza. The Jewish young people stood firmly with the people of Gaza and against the aggression of Israel. This is the type of the new generation that's coming up. Not only us on the Arab side, but on the Israeli side. Not us as Muslims or Christians. We need the Jews with us. We need a coalition that would build peace together. That is why we look the future requires that those people leading Israel today have to leave the theater. And at the same time, I would call on the Palestinians also to run elections as soon as they can in order to elect a new active leadership. We need that. The self-determination for the Palestinians start with elections among the Palestinians in the occupied territories,
Great.
the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The clock is now red and ticking. So yes, Mr. Petroulias, may your
Even though it's not my time to speak, you have to wrap up. I'm not a politician. I represent business. And the business view is always that business brings prosperity, and prosperity shifts the narrative of hate towards a narrative of cooperation. If people prosper, it's much easier for them.
And you need peace environment.
Sorry?
You need peace environment.
What I was saying before is that you need, of course, always you need a peaceful environment. No matter what, you need a peaceful environment. But you don't need a peaceful environment anymore to conduct business and trade. And maybe business and trade will feed.
They go together.
They will go together. And one will bring along the other.
thank you. Thank you. And John?
Yeah, so what I'd love to do, thank you, Joan, is try to bring this all together in the very limited time again that we have here. And just note, sort of an addendum to my opening remarks, that I really do believe that Donald Trump, because he seems to be the focus of much of the conversation here today, was supposed to be jailed by his political opponents between 2021 and 2024. Not only did he avoid jail in the United States, but then there have been 3 assassination attempts on his life. And I think, however ludicrous this may sound to audiences in the US and in Europe, he actually believes that he's an historic president. He has one term to try to influence the future of America and the world, the critical regions in Europe, the Middle East, and the Eastern Mediterranean in between. And he's determined to reorder and restructure global trade, energy, technology, military, and finance infrastructures. And right now he has, I think, a little over 2 years left. A lot of this will depend on the outcome of the November midterm elections, and whether Democrats win the House of Representatives and impeach Trump and investigate the Republican Party for the next 2 years and nothing happens, or whether he can somehow, against historical trends, hold on to the House of Representatives. But to bring this all together, I want to commend Congressman Gus Bilirakis, who spoke about the importance of this IMEC corridor. That's the potentially hopeful project that really, the credit goes to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who introduced IMEC in September of 2023, 1 month before the Hamas assault on Israel. And the idea there is to bring together India, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and if somehow Gaza can be rebuilt and be governed by a normal government, not by terrorists, not by Hamas, but by a normal government that takes care of the Palestinian people and doesn't build tunnels beneath, but builds infrastructure and prosperity for millions of Palestinians. And then from there you have an Israeli port, a Gaza port connecting to Cyprus, to Greece, Elefsina, Piraeus. We'll see, Elefsina, the Chinese Communist Party's in Piraeus, that's a problem. And then en route to Italy, France, and to all of these markets in Northern and Central Europe. And you've just spanned India throughout the European continent, across the Middle East, in an extraordinarily hopeful endeavor, Joan, but it's going to take some time to get through the current problems in the Middle East to ever get there. But the vision is there. Question is, can we get there? And that's going to be the challenge in the years ahead.
You mean Palestine by Gaza, you say?
Yeah.
It's not Gaza alone.
Well, Gaza as a port. Haifa, Israel, Gaza.
No,
Yes.
there is also, no.
Whatever it's
Gaza
called in
is
the end.
only part of Palestine.
Whatever it's called in the
It
end.
cannot go alone.
I leave that to the diplomats.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. The IMEC corridor has kind of been neglected. Maybe it's been, pushed to the background because of the conflict now in recent months. But I think it's it's definitely one of the most important
Right.
initiatives, very ambitious one. We also see that, Greece has signed trade deals with India as well, alongside that. So, but I just want to ask you, John, if you may care to answer my question about whether you see this peace holding, whether the conflict might reignite, or even, depending on the outcome of these negotiations, that it could reignite after the midterms if the outcome of these talks, which are likely to be protracted.
You mean U.S.-Iran?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, I'm not confident this is going to succeed at all. I think there is a profound mistrust between Washington and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. We don't know who's actually in charge in Tehran because the son, the new supreme leader, didn't go to his father's funeral. So we don't know if he's alive, if he's in a coma. We don't know if he actually has supreme authority in Tehran, whether it's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or whether there are competing factions inside Tehran, some who say, now let's adopt a more hardline, even more revolutionary line than we have since 1979, and others who say, this has been a disaster for the Iranian people. Why are they so poor? They're an energy-rich country, 90 million people, the inheritors of a great Persian civilization, which all of my Greek friends know about, dating back to BC. And yet they're one of the poorest countries when they should be one of the wealthiest and most advanced civilizations in the Middle East and beyond. So this government has utterly failed the Iranian people for 47 years, and maybe there are some people who say what we've done has been colossally catastrophic for the Iranian people, a new future ahead. But my fear is the mistrust is so deep and so profound right now. I'm guessing that there's going to be major attacks going back and forth. The Strait of Hormuz is not opening up anytime soon, and you're going to see a rapid increase in building out infrastructure to provide for alternate routes of oil and LNG out of the Gulf region to the world markets.
I guess just because we
really
are
care about
waiting
absence
for
of
the, Mr. Musa, we're waiting for the US ambassador to Greece to arrive, and that's the next session. But just to pick up again and to ask you, others would argue that Iran has come out of this conflict actually in a relatively strong position. The regime is still intact,
Right.
and that they still have weapons at their disposal. And of course, the weaponization of the Strait of Hormuz is something that is now, hanging over the global economy as a future threat. So I guess the question is, because you talked about US strategy, whether you see this as a miscalculation, which I guess, you could say that all wars to one degree or another are a miscalculation in the sense that there are unintended consequences and unpredictable consequences. But how do you see it? It may not be over yet, but from the vantage point of now.
You're absolutely right. It's not over by any means, and this war could be years long. I mean, we keep talking about weeks. I think one of the foolish parts of the early part of this was it's 4 to 6 weeks, it's a couple of months and whatnot. Wars can last for years. They don't have to be relatively intense, but look at the Russia invasion of Ukraine. Actually, the second Russian of Ukraine. We have to be mindful. Russia first invaded Ukraine in 2014, and the EU and the US together did almost nothing to push back against Russia, which gave us 2022. It's important for the West to act collectively and, where necessary, in a muscular way to deal with these types of regional threats. But my fear is that the Strait of Hormuz will be an increasingly unstable area for the shipment of oil and natural gas, but we do see a building out now across the United Arab Emirates, across Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, through Turkey, or through other means to other shipping ports to get their hydrocarbons to market. But here's the problem, Joan. We're forgetting about the impact of the cutoff of petrochemicals, of helium, of fertilizer to the global south. We may see very severe food insecurity in many countries in the Southern Hemisphere and South Asia, even in the Middle East, because of the cutoff of fertilizer, which could lead to poor yields, poor harvests, possibly social unrest. Helium. We need helium in the West for semiconductor fabrication, quantum computing, aerospace engineering, MRI systems in our hospitals. So We have a number of issues, ripple effects. None of this is going to be resolved anytime in the immediate future. I'm very sure this will go on well into the end of this year, probably deep into 2027.
I believe we
wanted to
need,
come
we
in-
need peace more than helium, I believe.
For Iran, I have presumption. You can't impose a regime to any country. People must decide on it. What I expect from Iran is, for so many decades, they have lived under the religious authority on top, and the rest was not very important. But now the Ayatollah is killed, and they need to have a religious authority. But my thinking is, there will be a religious authority. They are using the son's name for a while until they find another name, because we don't know what he is. Then this religious authority will be less powerful than the elected authority. There might be a president or somebody who governs the country, and the religious authority must be there because the people needs it. But there's a change of power. And of course, concerning Russia, Ukrainian war, I think the Russians have the habit of playing the chess game better than anybody in the world, but they also want you to play the Russian roulette while you're playing the Russian chess game. I hope it doesn't it will be used by the Russians, but not the counterparts. And there is also uncertainty. I hope Iran and Russia will be solved. That's what we are expecting. It will open new possibilities to the world. And of course, Palestine, I mentioned, we have both given the solution. But if we end Russia-Ukrainian war, and if we end Iran, there will be a huge possibility for business, for people to have better life, reconstruction, and removing these hot points from our agenda.
Thank you so much. Last word to
Two
Mr.
brief
Petropoulos, the business
The first
perspective
one
again.
is, as far as the Iranian conflict continues, the status quo right now, it's a missile drone war right now. And the problem with missile drone wars is that it does not allow for consolidation. So you can spend quite a long time, as you said, throwing missiles and drones from one to the other side and actually nothing happening after that. So that can drag on. That's my first comment. And the second comment is, we have always to remember that even if a conflict magically finishes and ends, it needs time for reconstruction.
Right.
And the time required to go back to old standards is quite decisive on the business cycle following a few years. So even if something stops now completely, we're going to see the effects on years to come, as you said, with helium and resources and so on. Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our speakers for a very lively and interesting discussion.
Bravo. Excellent.